Us to attention. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Remembrance Day ceremony for Artie Parker 2025. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we would like to acknowledge that we are signatories of Treaty 5 land and recognize the Nishnawbe Cree Nation on whose traditional territory we live, learn, and teach. The school district of Mystery Lake is located in the community of Thompson in the province of Manitoba, which is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Nahitho, Innu, Denisluwina, Métis, Inuit, Anisinu, Anishinaabe, and Dakota Oyate nations. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our commitment to honor treaties in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. We are all treaty people. I'll now call Prince Patel to the mic to get us started.
Good morning, staff and students. We are gathered here today to take a moment to recognize Canadian men and women who over the past century have given their lives for the cause of freedom in conflicts such as in Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East and Afghanistan. We ask you to remember, this is a solemn occasion. A number of speakers will be coming to the front and there will be a video footage to view. Please remain quiet, do not applaud, turn off your phones, remove your hats, and observe respectfully. Please reflect on the advantages we have as young people in Canada. Freedoms hard won by the soldiers we pause to remember today. Joining us on the stage are three members of the Thompson Air Cadets. Thank you for being here with us today. The choir will now lead us to O Canada.
It's an obligation to remember my friends who passed.
When I got back from Afghanistan, Remembrance Day was really hard for me.
I always think back to the guys that I went to school with that aren't with us anymore.
My squadron lost 83 bombers. 8 or 9 boys in every plane.
To keep their memories ready, to keep their memories alive, to keep their memories with us, we have to remember them.
Knowing the sacrifices that some of my soldiers have made, the ultimate sacrifice in some cases. Remembrance Day it brings it all together for us.
Remembrance Day for me is probably the most important day of the year.
Many things. Everything.
When I went to Afghanistan, going out the gate the first time, I was like, this is it.
Our death toll for the police was around 70 to 100 police officers a month.
They're gone. And I'm here. One of the lucky ones.
Yeah, rushed in to pick him up, and I stepped on a lead mine and I went up.
These 5 Afghan women had walked by. They unveiled their faces and they walked by and they waved. Them doing that really showed us that we were doing our job and that they didn't have any fear of the Taliban.
Whenever I see young people, I educate them, show them what is the importance of being in services.
In Remembrance Day, we pay tribute to those who stepped up and did what needed to be done.
I think the young folks of today have got to realize that it's not about warmongering. It's not about, anything like that. It's the fact that, there are so many people in the world that are helpless, that need protection.
Give a little thanks, to celebrate them, and to feel for whatever hardships they've gone through, basically because they've done it for these young people so that they can live.
It has to be told on the emotional side so that they understand that there was a reason for it. The reason for it was is basically to protect our families and our country.
I'm really honored when the kids come out and want to shake my hand and say thank you for what you did.
Remembrance Day is about remembering those who signed up and essentially wrote a check to say, I'm giving you everything.
The Second World War ended 80 years ago. More than 1 million Canadian soldiers, sailors, and aviators served around the globe. The liberation of the Netherlands was one of the most important chapters in Canada's military history. This year, 22 veterans from this time, of the few that are still with us, were in the parades and celebrations in Netherlands, being called liberators by those in Netherlands. They have not forgotten. War raged on from 1939 to 1945 in Europe. During this time period, Germany invaded Netherlands in 1940. 4 years later, the Allies were fighting hard to push the enemy back across the northwest Europe. Canadian forces were given the tough job of helping free the Dutch people after taking the beaches of Normandy during the hard-fought Battle of D-Day. Opening battles began in the fall of 1944, but the bad weather soon brought the Allied attacks to a stop. That winter was a terrible time for the Dutch. Food and fuel supplies reserves were gone. People ate tulip buds and scavenged through garbage to survive. Thousands starved and froze to death. Early in 1945, the Allies were on the move again. Their goal was to liberate the rest of Netherlands and finally end the war in Europe. Canadian troops were cheered as they freed one town after another. The liberation of Netherlands was a proud achievement for our country, but it came at a great cost. More than 7,000 of our Canadian soldiers have lost their lives. The Dutch people have never forgotten the help Canada offered in their time of need. Our countries remain close friends as of today. They remember, and so will we.
In the fall of 1944, the 1st Canadian Army was given the difficult task of liberating the Netherlands from Nazi occupation. First, they needed to take control of the Scheldt estuary. The Belgian port of Antwerp had already been liberated, but the 70 kilometers between it and the North Sea were still controlled by the Germans. The tide of war was turning against Germany, and the Nazis fought with desperation. Lieutenant Donald Pierce of the Highland Light Infantry wrote, "When will it all end? The dying of young men, the endless pounding of the battle line. What keeps this war going now that its end is so clear?" The German soldiers sensed the end was near also, but they had been ordered by Hitler to fight to the last man. Germans deliberately flooded the land, and the mud was thigh-deep. Tanks were useless. It was impossible to dig trenches. They fought from one dike to the next. It was a wet, miserable, and bloody battle. By November 8th, the Canadians had taken the estuary, but it came at a great cost. The Allies lost nearly 13,000 men in the Scheldt. But they weren't finished. The 1st Canadian Army had to push the Germans back across the Rhine River. They were joined by the 1st Canadian Corps, the first time in history that 2 Canadian Army Corps fought together. There were pockets of fierce resistance, and the Germans destroyed bridges and dikes as they retreated. But the Canadians drove across the country to the North Sea, taking Arnhem and Apeldoorn. In late April 1945, they negotiated a truce so that supplies could now reach millions of starving Dutch civilians. Holland had been liberated. More than 7,600 Canadians died and are buried in war cemeteries across the country. And many more thousands, my dad included, were injured in fighting in the Netherlands. And every year, the Netherlands sends thousands upon thousands of tulips to Ottawa in gratitude for Canada's wartime service.
Peace finally came to last to Europe and eventually the world. The Second World War raged from 1939 to 1945. It was the deadliest conflict in human history. The end of the war was publicly celebrated on two important dates. The first is VE, Victoria in Europe Day. The defeat of Germany was officially marked on May 8, 1945. People filled the streets in communities around the world to celebrate the end of fighting in Europe. The second important date is VJ, Victoria over Japan Day. Fighting in Asia and the Pacific continued for months following VE Day. Many of our Canadian stories focus on fighting in Europe, but Canadians played a role in the Battle of the Pacific as well. The Canadians that were stationed in Hong Kong had held out after the bombing of Pearl Harbor with every losses against impossible odds for more than 17 days before laying down their weapons. However, the ordeal for the surviving Canadians was far from over. They would become prisoners of war for more than 3.5 years, first in Hong Kong until early 1943, and then in Japan until their liberation in September 1945. We remember these soldiers, many of whom were Manitobans. The Japanese finally gave up, and VJ Day was marked on August 15, 1945. After almost 6 years of bitter fighting, the Second World War was finally over.
August 15th marked 80 years since victory over Japan Day, also known as VJ Day, the moment the guns of the Second World War finally fell silent. For many Canadians, it was a day of jubilation, the final chapter of a 6-year storm that had claimed over 44,000 Canadian lives. VJ Day is a commemoration of Japan's unconditional surrender in 1945, which came after 2 U.S. atomic bombs had been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, along with the Soviet Union's declaration of war against Japan, which sealed the fate of Japan's doomed empire. August 16, 1945 was the day the world finally exhaled after years of fear and sacrifice. Although Canada's wartime legacy is often remembered through the battles which were fought in Europe, many Canadians also fought with honor in the Pacific Theater, a battlefield fought on the waves below the sea, in dense jungles and among remote islands. There were soldiers, sailors, and airmen, ordinary people thrown into extraordinary circumstances, carrying out their duty half a world away. Prior to the United States being attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor, Canada began its most significant involvement in the Pacific Theater. In October 1941, nearly 2,000 Canadian troops, including the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifles of Canada, were sent to reinforce the British garrison in Hong Kong. Many of them were young with limited combat training. Their deployment was a brainchild of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who wanted to boost civilian morale in Hong Kong, given the looming threat of Japanese aggression. When Japan did launch its full-scale surprise attack on December 8th, one day after Pearl Harbor, the Canadian soldiers were not only heavily outnumbered but also cut off from reinforcements. Canadians fought at Wong Nai Chong Gap, Stanley Village, and on Mount Butler, often against tanks and heavy artillery without equivalent firepower. The defenders held their ground for 17 days before the battle ended in unconditional surrender on Christmas Day, famously named Black Christmas. Nearly 300 Canadians were killed, and those who survived faced years in Japanese prisoner of war camps under harsh conditions of starvation, disease, and forced labor. The story of Hong Kong remains one of Canada's greatest tests of endurance and courage. The war in the Pacific was not fought solely overseas. On June 20th, 1942, the Japanese submarine I-26 surfaced off the west coast of Vancouver Island and fired several shells at the Estevan Point lighthouse. Although no one was injured and the damage was minimal, this marked the first time the Canadian mainland came under direct enemy fire. The attack led to the strengthening of Canada's west coast defenses. Anti-submarine patrols increased, radar stations were expanded, and blackout measures were enforced along the shoreline. Even though the shells caused little damage, their message was unmistakable. The war could even touch the quietest corners of home. In the remote, foggy Aleutian Islands far from the main operational theater of the Pacific War, Canadian forces played a critical role when Japanese troops seized the island of Attu and Kiska, collectively known as Aleutians. In 1942, the threat to North American shores became real. The Royal Canadian Navy patrolled frigid waters and escorted convoys and other vessels. The Royal Canadian Air Force flew missions over treacherous stretches of empty waterways. In the joint U.S.-Canadian landing on Kiska in August, Canadian forces helped ensure the operation's success. Even though Japanese forces had already secretly evacuated, the mission was still dangerous. The islands were filled with thick fog, cliffs, and booby traps. These led to many accidents, showing the unpredictable and highly personal nature of the Pacific theater warfare. 80 years later, Canada's role in the Pacific theater is often overshadowed by the battles fought in Europe. Yet the courage of those who fought at Hong Kong, patrolled the Aleutians, guarded the home front, and endured captivity is an essential chapter of our wartime history. VJ Day is not only a time to celebrate peace, but also to honor the sacrifices that helped secure it. Sacrifices made in jungles and islands half a world away.
Veterans have performed many important duties around the world over the years. In 2025, Veterans Affairs Canada is shining a spotlight on Canadian military efforts in our own country and across the Americas. From prairie floods to East Coast storms and ocean rescues, from the Halifax explosion to earthquakes in South America, from defending the Arctic to North American Aerospace Defense Command efforts and peacekeeping missions in Central America, the service and sacrifice of our veterans has kept us safe, sovereign, and strong, and make sure Canada remains a good neighbor. One example of how Canadians have helped during tough times happened in 2010. A devastating earthquake struck the Caribbean country of Haiti. Thousands of residents died. So did 2 Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers who were serving as peacekeepers there. The Canadian Armed Forces immediately launched Operation Estia. They sent Army, Navy, and Air Force personnel to assist the people of Haiti. More than 2,000 Canadian service members helped in the recovery efforts. They offered medical services, humanitarian aid, and other support. This year is the 15th anniversary of Operation Estia.
Canada's veterans have always been there for us and for other countries in the Americas. They have kept us safe, sovereign, and strong. For many decades, our veterans have been there to help others in need. In times of crisis, they have promoted peace, provided humanitarian assistance, and lent a helping hand. Canada's service members have always been dedicated to keeping Canadians and our country safe. They have launched search and rescue missions, helped keep dangerous drugs from reaching our shores, and worked closely with other countries to ensure Canada remains the true north, strong and free. Throughout our history, Canada's military personnel have helped us in times of need. They respond to natural disasters and domestic tragedies, often putting their lives on the line to help others. The Canadian Armed Forces protect our country by patrolling our skies, coasts, and land. Like the veterans before them, our military has always been ready to defend Canada's borders. Let's salute the Canadian Armed Forces' long history of service in our country and throughout the Americas. Explore their stories.
The Canadian Armed Forces perform many roles. Some of their most important jobs involve helping here at home. Canada is a huge country and our climate can be extreme. Members of our military are sometimes asked to help when severe floods, blizzards, wildfires, or hurricanes hit. Their assistance has been vital in the aftermath of natural disasters. These have included the Red River floods of 1997 in Manitoba, the Great Ice Storms of 1998 in Quebec, fighting recent wildfires, and much more. Through it all, the Canadian Armed Forces has been there for many communities when they needed aid the most. Canadian service members also swing into action during search and rescue operations. This includes everything from plane crashes in remote areas to ships in trouble at sea. Imagine being a military pilot, flying into the center of a terrible storm, or a search and rescue technician being lowered from a helicopter above the ocean. They put their lives on the line to help others when things are at their worst. Serving in the military can be very challenging, but sacrifices are not just made by the person who wears the uniform.
Canadian armed forces members can be sent from their homes for long periods. They can be asked to put their lives on the line for their country. Sometimes they get sick or suffer injuries to body or mind. Military family members are proud of their relatives who serve. But imagine your mother, father, sister, or brother being away for 6 months or longer. Imagine worrying if they're safe. For many young people in our country, this has been a tough reality. Sometimes the only thing many have are letters to and from home. Some never get the chance to receive a letter back. So Veterans Week and Remembrance Day, let's remember everyone who has paid a price for our peace and freedom, including Canadians' military families.
Millions of people around the world wear a poppy on Remembrance Day. The origins of this tradition date back to the First World War. Did you know a Canadian helped make poppies a symbol of remembrance? Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae was a doctor with the Canadian Expeditionary Force. In May 1915, he was serving Ypres, Belgium, where he spent day after day trying to save wounded soldiers. He was devastated when his friend, Lieutenant Alexis Helmer, was killed in action. Alexis was buried in a war cemetery nearby. Red poppies grew between the crosses, making the graves there. After speaking at Alexis' funeral, John took a few minutes the next day to quickly write a poem capturing his feelings. On January 28, 1918, John McCrae passed away. He died not knowing the outcome of the war, but with a full understanding of the cost of it. Before he died, Dr. McCrae had the satisfaction of knowing that his poem had been a success. Soon after its publication, it became the most popular poem on the First World War. This year is the 110th anniversary of John's writing of In Flanders Field. I'll read the poem to you now. In Flanders Field the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch, be yours to hold it high, if ye breaks faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, through poppies grow, in Flanders Field.
"25 years ago, a Canadian Forces aircraft flew to France to bring the unknown soldier back to Canada. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission, responsible for the care of graves and memorials of the Commonwealth Forces, members who died in the First and Second World Wars, selected an unidentified Canadian soldier from Cabaret Rouge British Cemetery in the vicinity of Vimy Ridge, the site of a famous Canadian battle of the First World War. On May 25, 2000, at a ceremony at the Canadian National Vimy Memorial, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission turned over the remains to Canada. At that point, the Canadian Forces took over responsibility for the safekeeping and transport of the soldiers' remains. Immediately after the ceremony, the Canadian delegation returned to Ottawa with a casket containing the soldiers' remains on board the aircraft. In the afternoon of May 28, the unknown soldier was transported from Parliament Hill to the National War Memorial on a horse-drawn carriage provided by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The funeral cortege included many military personnel, veterans, RCMP, and dignitaries. The unknown soldier was laid to rest in a specially designed sarcophagus directly in front of the National War Memorial in Ottawa. From that point on, the tomb of the unknown soldier became a focal point of commemoration for all memorial events at the National War Memorial. It is a memorial in Canada for Canadians. The tomb is a fitting way to honor the sacrifices on which our freedoms were built. But who was he? What was he like? Where was he from in Canada? We shall remember him. battles past, battles now, and battles yet to come. Vimy Ridge, the Battle of Britain, the Battle of the Atlantic, Hong Kong, Dieppe, Sicily, Juno Beach, the Korean War, the liberation of Holland, Cap Young, these are just some of the battles long ago that are etched in Canada's collective memory bank. Battles lost and battles won in blinding snows and blazing sun. Sadly, we now add new names to our memory bank. Kosovo, the Gulf, Kandahar, sadder still, there will inevitably be future battles and more names to remember on each chilly November morn. But remember them we shall, remember them we must.
On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, commemorating a moment 107 years ago when troops laid down their arms to end the First World War, we join all Canadians in paying tribute to the courage and valor of all who served and those who serve today. Please rise as we lay a wreath on behalf of the students of R.D. Parker. I ask you to stand with me for both the injured and the lost. I ask you to keep count with me for all the wars and what they cost. I ask you to be silent with me, quietly grateful for our lot, as I expect you're as thankful as me for the health and life we've got. I ask that you wish them well with me, all those still risking their all, and I ask that you remember with me the names of those that fall. I expect that you are proud like me of this great nation of ours too. So enjoying all its freedoms like me, support those upholding them for you. I hope that you are hopeful like me, that we'll soon bring an end to wars. So you'll have to stand no more with me, and the mourning family is no different than yours. Till then, be thankful you can stand with me, thinking of all those who now cannot. For standing here today with me, at least we show they're not forgot. Please remain standing for the playing of the last post, followed by 2 minutes of silence, the playing of Rouse, and God Save the Queen.
Please remain standing. They shall grow not old, as we are that left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Please remain standing while the choir sings I Am Leaving by Miriam Sonstons. This concludes our Remembrance Day ceremony. Please exit the theater from the rear to the front rows.